At the time I'm recording this video, the Pope is hospitalized at Gemelli. He has been suffering from severe bronchitis for over a week, which has repeatedly prevented him from reading his prepared texts during public events, Mass, and audience. His breathing has appeared labored, showing clear signs of significant distress. For this reason, doctors have likely decided to admit him to Gemelli, where they can provide more extensive treatment for his bronchitis. This is not the first time this has happened. At this moment, he is hospitalized, and we must pray for the Pope for his health and his recovery. However, the major news this week has been the letter the Pope sent to the Catholic bishops of the United States, in which he strongly criticized the policy of deporting illegal immigrants. This represents an unprecedented confrontation between the Vatican and the United States, and time will tell whether it will have serious consequences. In this letter, the Pope states that expelling people who, in many cases, have left their homeland due to extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, and persecution, or severe environmental degradation, violates the dignity of many men and women and entire families, placing them in a particularly vulnerable and defenseless state. The Pope adds in his letter that a properly formed conscience cannot refrain from making a critical judgment and expressing disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly equates some migrants' undocumented status with criminality. An illegal immigrant is someone who has committed an offense. The Pope himself acknowledges this. Not long ago he issued a decree on the penalties for those who enter and remain illegally in the Vatican City, including prison sentences and heavy fines. An undocumented person has broken the law, but that doesn't make them a criminal. They cannot be equated with a terrorist, a rapist, or even a thief. The Pope states this in his letter, and I believe he is right. We must be very careful in the use of words. Naturally, the Pope's letter has received various expressions of support. For instance, the President of the U.S. Bishops, Archbishop Broglio, has backed it. It is important to note that Archbishop Broglio has selected by conservative bishops and is himself considered a conservative. However, as soon as Trump announced his deportation policy, Broglio used a statement less critical than the Pope's letter, but still expressing his disagreement, warning that such a policy would harm many vulnerable and defenseless people. Now, after the Pope's letter was published, he wrote to thank him, stating that the letter reinforced what he had said a little over a week ago. Other bishops, including cardinals from the more liberal sectors of the U.S. Catholic Church, have also expressed their support for the Pope. Naturally, the Pope's letter has also sparked strong criticism, some of it quite harsh. For example, some have reproached him for not issuing a similar statement during the 4-year presidency of Catholic Joe Biden, who ended his term professing as a master Mason. They argue that the Pope did nothing during those 4 years to protest Biden's policies supporting abortion or gender ideology, as if abortion or gender ideology were less important than immigration. The Pope has also been criticized for failing to include even a few words of courtesy in his strong letter against Trump, acknowledging the former president's policy in favor of the family, life, religious freedom, and the rights of Christians, both in the U.S. and abroad. Critics of the Pope's letter accuse him of ideological bias, arguing that he ignores the fact that in just the first 2 years of Biden's presidency, 4.4 million illegal immigrants were deported, while in Trump's previous 4 years term, the total was 3.13 million. In other words, Biden deported far more people in 2 years than Trump did in 4. Yet, the Pope never criticized him, even apart from the issue like abortion and gender ideology. Trump's total of 3.13 million deportation over 4 years was also significantly lower than the 13.16 millions deported under Obama. The year Trump deported the most people was 2019, with 267,000, while Obama's highest deportation year was 2014, with 316,000. However, Biden broke all records in 2024, deporting 271,000 people. Neither against Obama nor against Biden did anyone protest. Not only the Pope, no protests, but no one did. This is yet another case that proves that whatever the left does, no matter what, is considered right, while whatever the right does is considered wrong. I am not saying that what Trump is doing is right, but I am saying that there is a clear tendency to justify what some do while criticizing what others do. A relative moderate columnist like R. Rene wrote in the conservative magazine First, thinks that with this letter, the Pope has signed his own suicide note, that it is what this columnist claims, arguing that the Pope has invited bishops to intervene in politics, something explicitly prohibited in the United States, and that he has done so by urging them to oppose the government's enforcement of the law. This, he says, is an invitation for them to enter politics, and we will see what consequences that may bring. However, Reno agrees with the Pope. He states that the infinitive and the transcendent dignity of every human being surpasses and upholds any other legal consideration that may be made to regulate social life. Since the end of the World War II, Western centuries have recognized that immigration restriction must be left with dealing with refugees fleeing persecution. And although Reno does not mention it, this group includes the 600,000 Venezuelans currently in the U.S. under the political asylum who have already been threatened with expulsion and returned to Venezuela, where they will face an extremely dire situation, not only due to the economic crisis, but also because of the lack of freedom in Venezuela, which is under a terrible dictatorship. One of the voices that, in my view, has spoken with the most measured and balanced tone is Archbishop Jose Gomez, the Archbishop of Los Angeles, leads the largest Catholic diocese in the U.S., which naturally includes a great number of undocumented immigrants. Being so close to the Mexican border, most of these undocumented individuals residing in Los Angeles are Catholics. Archbishop Gomez also weighed in the Pope's letter, publishing a statement in the Diocesan magazine. He reminded readers that Obama deported more than 5 million undocumented immigrants, earning him the title of Deporter-in-Chief. Yet, no one protested against him. As I mentioned earlier, the left can do whatever it wants, and no one says anything. Archbishop Gomez affirms that everyone agrees that we do not want to document immigrants who are terrorists or violent criminals, and that such individuals should indeed be deported, but in a manner that respects their rights and dignity as human beings. However, he points out that the real issue is not the deportation, but the flawed system that allows undocumented immigrants to enter in the first place. He does not explicitly say it, but it is clear that these individuals enter the country because there is an organization network that exploits them, extracting large sums of money and even diverting some of those who seek to work in the U.S. into criminal organizations or against their will into prostitution. This is the core problem. This is the problem that needs to be fixed first and foremost, says Archbishop Gomez. He adds that every nation has the solemn duty to control and protect its borders, something the Pope also acknowledged. However, Archbishop Gomez calls for generosity in welcoming immigrants, recognizing, as the Pope does in his letter, that we cannot allow anyone who wishes to live in the U.S. to enter freely. There must be rules and orderly process to determine whom we welcome, how many we can accommodate, and under what conditions. Finally, and I greatly appreciate that the Archbishop of Los Angeles highlights this, as a few have done so. He calls for dialogue, reminding everyone that the government has its responsibilities and that the Church has its mission. The Church's mission is to stand with those who suffer, with the weak, while also recognizing that the law must be obeyed. Trump has elected with the majority of the Catholic vote. The first time this has happened. Traditionally, Catholics have always voted for Democrats, but for the first time, the majority of Catholics voted for Trump and the Republicans. However, it is very likely that if elections were held again, this will not happen. Trump must take this into account. If he wants his legacy to endure beyond his presidency, if he wants the policies he calls common sense policies to persist in future elections and even in the midterm when Congress and part of the Senate are up for a re-election, he must avoid being at odds with the Church. It is not in his best interest, neither for his policies nor for his party. Likewise, it is not in the Church's interest to be in conflict with the world's leading superpower. Beyond that, this issue is not limited to the U.S. election are about to take places in Germany, elections that will be decisive for Europe's future. Right now, the central issue being debated is precisely how to handle immigration. Recently, another mass attack occurred, this time in the streets of Munich, perpetrated by an Afghan asylum seeker who ran over pedestrians, injuring dozens of people, among them a child who is now fighting for his life. This issue of immigration affects many nations, particularly industrialized societies. It must be controlled, it must be regulated, and at the same time, efforts must be made to show generosity, especially towards the most vulnerable, those fleeing extreme danger, hunger, or the absence of freedom and democracy. For this reason, I believe we must pray. The Pope has said it many times. We must build bridge, no walls. Well, if walls exist, let them at least have doors for the weakest and the most needy, and above those walls, let there be bridges. Dialogue is necessary. No one benefits from the conflict between the US and the Church. Some may be rubbing their hands in anticipation, eager to manipulate the Pope against a particular political project, but no one truly benefits from this confrontation. For the good of the United States and the Church, dialogue must take place. I ask prayer so that after this serious conflict, dialogue may emerge. And I ask for prayers, as I did at the beginning, for the Pope's health. Until next week, God willing.